Why am I always so tired? I hear that so many times. I'm so exhausted. I'm always exhausted, but why? Well, in this episode, we're going to explore exactly that. So if this is a question you'd like to find out more about, if constant exhaustion is a thing that's holding you back, stick around. Let's dive in. Most people try to solve exhaustion with motivation. Crazy, I know. They push harder. They drink more caffeine. They buy the energy drinks, the magic foods, and they force themselves through the day. And for a while, maybe the caffeine works, maybe the sugar works. Well, they convince themselves it's working. But eventually something starts happening. Focus drops, patience disappears, and simple decisions, they just get heavier than they should. They don't feel heavy, they get heavy. And consistency becomes hard to maintain because you're making mistakes. People often assume the problem is discipline. I just take more energy drinks. I have 4 coffees in the afternoon. Notice how I sped up then? That was intentional. But sometimes the issue is much simpler than that. They're actually tired. Not, I had a big week tired, but let's call it chronically under-recovered. Now, chronic's a medical term, by the way. Chronic means that which, continues. It's an ongoing, persistent condition. So chronically under-recovered. They don't recover, and they do that regularly. That changes so much more than most people realize. Because sleep is not just recovery. Sleep is performance. My name is Brian Dance. I've spent more than 30 years working in business leadership in some pretty tough environments. And the one thing I've observed around sleep is this. The people who perform consistently well over long periods aren't necessarily the ones that are pushing themselves the hardest. Many times they're simply the ones that recover the best. Hello and welcome back to The Long Way Forward. This is episode 43. I can't believe I've done 43 episodes. Long may we continue. Let's get into the journey together. Today, I'm going to be talking about one of the, let's say, that flies under the radar, one of the most overlooked performance multipliers in modern life. Sleep. We are so busy, probably as humans, busier than we've ever been. There are so many distractions, so many just one more things to keep us going, doom scrolling, energy drinks, 24/7 lifestyle. Where does sleep fit in? So far in this podcast, almost everything I've talked about, consistency, energy, emotional control, decision making, and performance, well, they depend on sleep. Before we go any further, if this series is helping you think differently, or make better choices, or deliver better outcomes, please take a moment to like, comment, or subscribe. It motivates me, and I guarantee you it will help others on the same journey. If you're experiencing it, almost certainly someone else is too. So please comment. I'd love to see them. Now let's get back to sleep. Hang on, that came out wrong. Let's start with a shift in perspective. Most people treat sleep as something that happens with whatever time is left at the end of the day. You work, you deal with life, you deal with family, you train, you manage responsibilities, and when I've got all that done, I'll get to sleep at some random time. High performers, on the other hand, think about sleep differently. They don't just see it as something that happens at the end of the day. They see it as preparation for the next one because they know it's something their bodies and their minds need. Rest and recovery so they're ready to go again. And that's a major mindset shift. It's intentional. Notice I use the word intentional quite a bit in this podcast because everything you do tomorrow depends heavily on how well you recover tonight. Your focus, your patience, your emotional control, your reaction time, your ability to make good decisions under pressure, all of it is influenced by sleep quality. On quality, take the time, check us out on LinkedIn. I share quite a bit of content that's similar to this there. And if that's a value to you, by all means connect with me there. My name's Brian Dance. Look me up on LinkedIn. Love to see you there. Now think honestly about sleep. And consider that we've talked about previous episodes. We've talked about consistency, perseverance, habits, and decision making. Notice those words: consistency, particularly habits, and decision making. When you're sleep deprived, you can't access those skills properly, and you don't even know that you're sleep deprived. You might show up physically, but mentally, you are definitely not showing up at your best, and that matters. Fun fact, studies show that people who are severely sleep deprived often exhibit similar decision-making qualities as those who are 0.05 over the limit on alcohol. Imagine that. That's how important sleep is, people. Not just keeping you alive. Let's make this practical in the business sense. Think about a day after genuinely good sleep. You feel clearer, more focused, more emotionally stable, more decisive. We normally sum it up with, gee, I feel awesome. But that's just the sleep. And you respond better instead of reacting because you think better. You often get more done with less effort. Now compare that to a day when you wake up with poor sleep. Maybe you were interrupted during the night by lots of noise. Maybe the bed was uncomfortable. Maybe the room was too cold. Maybe it was too hot. Compare a great night's sleep with a morning where you wake up with poor sleep. Everything feels heavier. You procrastinate more. You avoid difficult tasks more. You feel more reactive emotionally, more cranky, I think is a word you could use. And you lose focus more easily. In Australia, we get those stinking hot days in summertime. If it's humid, nobody sleeps properly. And everybody's cranky. I guarantee you there are more accidents out there. There is less work done, all because we did not sleep well. Same people, different outcomes. And the difference is recovery. Here's something important. It often gets overlooked in the whole equation. Sleep doesn't just affect productivity. It can also affect your reputation, because over time, careers and leadership are built on consistent performance. And consistency becomes difficult when recovery is poor. You know how you look when you're tired? Gee, he or she, they look exhausted. That's people's perception of you, very much aligned with reputation. And all it came down to was making sure you got quality sleep. Food for thought. People notice reliability. They notice emotional steadiness. And people notice clear thinking under pressure. And all of those things are heavily influenced by sleep quality. And on that, let's talk health. Health and life. This matters a lot more than productivity. Sleep is where your body resets. Your brain processes information in the background. Your body repairs itself. Your nervous system recovers. Hormones rebalance. Your immune system recharges. And when sleep quality isn't where it needs to be, repeatedly, performance declines across every area of life. Not just work, everything. Fatigue builds, stress becomes harder to manage, decision quality drops, recovery slows, and you get sick. You get sicker more often because your immune system's not up to it. And so many people do that. They keep trying to solve problems with more effort instead of better recovery. Now pause for a second and I want you to think honestly with me about your sleep habits. Not what you intend to do, but what actually happens. Think about, what time are you usually going to bed and waking? How consistent is it? What time are you waking up? Do you wake up during the night? And if you are waking up during the night, why? Is there an influence there that could be controlled or eliminated? Noise, outside lights, a living environment where there's people coming and going. If you're being disturbed like that and you're not sleeping well, you're not planning sleep intentionally. You're trying to sleep. You're just sort of fitting it into whatever space there is for it. And if that's the case, that's important. You need to do something about it and get that quality sleep where it needs to be. Now, if this is landing for you, do take a moment to comment or subscribe, because awareness about sleep creates the opportunity for change, and you commenting, hey, this is happening to me, might just be that moment where someone else realizes, I need to do something. You could literally save someone's life doing this. Now, let's move into something practical. If sleep is genuinely important, and it is, then it needs to be treated intentionally like every other important part of performance. If fitness matters, people plan training. If career growth matters, people plan development. So why ignore the thing supporting both? Planning sleep means deciding in advance when you go to bed, when you wake up, and how much sleep your body genuinely needs. For most people, it is in fact about 8 hours, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but usually around that. And here's the thing most people miss. Consistency matters more than perfection. I've said that before in this podcast series too, haven't I? Consistency matters more than perfection. Your body responds strongly to rhythm, particularly around sleep. So going to bed at vastly different times of a night, that disrupts recovery patterns, even if the total hours are right. Rhythm matters. It's called a circadian rhythm. Now let's talk about preparation for sleep, because sleep for most of us doesn't start the moment your head hits the pillow. It begins before that. Again, we're talking intentional, people. The hour ahead of going to sleep matters a lot. Late caffeine, constant phone scrolling, work stress, mental stimulation, all of these things negatively affect sleep quality, and they affect recovery quality. So preparation might look like reducing stimulation before bed, having a regular wind down routine, lowering your screen exposure, and giving your brain space to slow down properly. Kind of like shutting down a computer, because that's what it is. You don't pull the plug, you press the off, you turn it off, and it slowly shuts down all the routines and processes in the background and then goes to sleep. We're just like that, people. Not complicated. It's just got to be intentional. Have that routine. Now, the risks of not sleeping, a lack of sleep is not just uncomfortable. As I touched on before, it reduces capability. Reaction time slows. Focus weakens. Judgment becomes impaired. And in some situations, that can be really dangerous. Driving is one obvious example. Many people underestimate how dangerous sleep deprivation actually is. They think they're functioning normally, but performance has already dropped significantly. As I said, reaction time is one, but it flows into so many areas. Now bring that back into everyday life. Poor decisions, missed opportunities, reduced patience, more emotional reactions, less consistency. All of these small effects, well, they add up. And they add up over time, just like positive habits do. And that's why sleep matters so much. Here's the shift you can think about. Sleep is not wasted time. Sleep is preparation. It is one of the most effective performance tools available. It improves outcomes without requiring you to work harder. And if it's that easy, why would you not do it? So here's something simple you can try this week. Pick a consistent bedtime. Pick a consistent wake-up time. And the hour before that consistent bedtime, have a routine that involves around slowing down, lowering your mental load, switching off the screens, and just generally getting into a pre-sleep state. And for the next 5 days, commit to doing it consistently. No perfection, no overcomplication, just consistency. Oh, it's 9 o'clock. Next hour I need to start winding down. Plan to get to bed at 10, up at 6. That's what it might look like. And then observe honestly each day, and at the end of it, how do you feel? How do you perform? And how are you responding? Because once people experience the difference properly, they usually stop thinking sleep's an option. It's essential. Now let's close this podcast out. We've talked about time, we've talked about energy, and we've talked about consistency. Remember, sleep supports all of those. When recovery improves, almost everything else becomes easier to sustain. Focus gets better, patience improves, decision-making improves, performance becomes easier. And that's really powerful. And don't forget, if this episode gave you something you can apply, something useful, please take a moment to like, share, or subscribe. That'd be awesome. Because sometimes the biggest performance improvements come from fixing the simplest things. This is the Long Way Forward podcast. My name's Brian Dance. Thanks for being here, and I hope to see you in the next episode.